as our red Terran player for Team LGIM. It is MVP. And spawning in the top left position as our yellow Zerg player. Man, that Lean Baneling Needle style, really thought it would work against Widowmine Bio, but it was just too much. Give it up for StarCraft. That was a really interesting game, number one, and I think that's a sign of the times. You know, the new army composition styles that are going to open up in Heart of the Swarm. We saw that Widowmine Bio style, barely any tanks really, not actually tanky at all. That was so interesting of a setup that was there. He was able to just split the units, use enough spread out Widowmines to just cut the Ling count down. Even if he didn't kill the Banelings, you had enough bio to shoot through the Banelings because there were no Zerglings to tank because of the Widowmines. So really interesting play by MVP in just making great use of the new units. He is going to open up with that barracks again, though. The map this time will be Ohana. This is a map that traditionally favored a lot of mech play in Wings of Liberty for Terran versus Zerg, largely due to the easy to defend third base, easy to wall off natural, and generally just pushing forward with a very, very large force towards the tower. So that should be interesting what we get out of our players this game. MVP will choose not to open with the very fast gas. This drone will come scout. We'll say, hey, okay, you're not doing anything super ridiculous. Sees the barracks, has not scouted the gas yet. Looks like these overlords around the scout, and he's going for the fast hatchery himself, so nothing fast out of Golden. Should be getting that spawning pool, though, relatively quickly. Probably as soon as he can afford it. And, well, he comes in, he checks, sees, okay, no gas from the LJM player, so he knows it's going to probably be a fast expand. And that's exactly what it looks like from MVP. He's just getting a Marine out. He's not faking him out and taking gas as soon as he's gone. SCV is now on the way to build that expansion, as well as the SCV to scout. So, MVP having that drone go into his base. He's basically looking at, what are the biggest things that he has to worry about in terms of attacks. Okay, he sees, okay, hatchery is on the way. MVP wants to know whether or not Golden's going for any kind of gas, just so he can make sure that he's going to be safe against anything like fast roaches, fast banelings. One of the new timings that has popped up for Zerg versus Terran is, of course, the burrowed roach timing, often used to kill Hellion openings and whatnot, so this is not bad at all. MVP is going to be perfectly fine to continue with his plan. He's going to get these two refineries up, likely move into that factory with the reactor play. We could see him open up Widowmine once again, or we could see him open up Hellion. So, of course, the sky is the limit. There are still many options available, quite a variety of tech paths now in Heart of the Swarm. But Golden, he's just going to drone up. He's got the spawning pool. Not getting any gas yet, so it looks like he's going to go for the classic 4-queen opener, perhaps. Basically utilizing 2 queens to inject and 2 queens for solely pushing creep and defending against any kind of Hellion pressure. The Zerglings are out on the map, going to try to scour and for these SCVs, prevent them from getting any information. The factory, though, now starting for MVP, he's going to be able to move into higher tech path. And with this Marine done, we will see the reactor immediately as well. So the Zergling gets in here, and it actually scouts for Golden basically everything that MVP is up to. Sees, okay, well, there's a reactor. That's got to be the factory. So it's a 1-rax expand. Now, Golden knows everything that MVP is doing, so he can kind of rule out a couple of options, being very early bio pushes, which means that he could actually go for a fast 30 if he... just sneezed. But he can go for the fast 30 without worrying about any kind of early bio push. Oftentimes, there's actually been a little bit more common now, Terran players going for the fast expand into bio pushes. Now, we do have a second factory on the way for MVP, and this is like a little bit of kicking it old school for Wings of Liberty. A very popular build, really brought up in the last couple months of Wings of Liberty, namely IPL5, very heavily favored opener. The double factory, blue flame, Hellion timing, and this basically allows for a super fast blue flame push that can just completely eradicate any and all Zergling openers. You have enough Hellions to punch through Queens, enough Hellions to punch through Zerglings, and even a Spine Crawler. So this kind of build from MVP very strong. In fact, this build received an inadvertent buff in Heart of the Swarm. Oftentimes, if this push failed, if your opponent opened roaches, they could counterattack with a reasonable number of them and possibly just kill off the Terran player. But now, in Heart of the Swarm, you no longer need to research siege mode tech. There's no siege mode. Tanks come with that built in, so it's a lot easier to hold roach counter pushes. You just make a tank while the roaches are on their way, and the tank is ready to roll as soon as it comes out. So, of course, these Hellions are not going to be able to go for any kind of fast Hellbat push. The Transformation Servos upgrade was added as a requirement. You cannot freely switch, even with an armory. So, these Hellions are just applying some forward pressure. Now, this Spine Crawler will not be able to defend either of these bases. There's a wall going up with some evolution chambers, but Blue Flame is approaching completion. MVP has smartly tucked away some of these Hellions. He's not showing any more than the original 4 that he made, so he's basically telling Golden, hey man, yeah, I just made 4 Hellions, it's fine. You don't need to commit anything to roaches. You don't need to make any good number of Zerglings to deal with this, or even Banelings for that matter. So now he's going to move out there with the rest of the Hellions. He's adding on another 7 coming to join his 4, and this is going to become a bit scary. Blue Flame upgrade is complete. Now he's going to be able to just completely overwhelm these queens, moving up. This queen will die in a horrible blue fiery death, and he's just going to run right on by into the natural. So there is a queen blocking this, but Spinecrow is getting some good damage in here. If he kills this queen, Transfuse goes down, so he's able to block these Hellions from getting through, but they can barely squeeze inside. He wants to run them all in. He needs to get some drone kills, though. These Hellions not able to do anything, and Golden really holds this push from MVP well. This push completely failed. Drones killed for MVP, sitting at 2, so wow, great transfuse micro from Golden, and bringing that queen over to block the ramp was huge. The Hellions could have squeezed by, but not in time, so the Zergling pressure that Golden might be looking to do, the Hellions are still good at defending that, but is it going to be... Does MVP really have enough to continue on with this? I'm not so sure. He's going to go back into double armory as his follow-up, so this is going to be a mech build out of the LGIM Terran. He's pushing forward with these Hellions, just trying to dance with the Zerglings. Of course, they do two-shot the Zerglings, even if he only has a very low number of Hellions. So he has a lot of options for laying on this aggression. He's now taking the gas at his natural expansion. Keep in mind, Golden is aware of this. He knows how late this gas is. So you might actually think they could still be a bio-transition, but with the Blue Flame opening, of course, it does tend to lend itself towards mech. Zerglings whittling down these rocks. We have Roach Speed on the way for our Startail Zerg, as well as the +1 ranged attack for Zerg, and the +1 Carapace. So he's getting ready to move into his mid-game. We do have a lair, of course, he hasn't built any lair tech, though. So as I say that, the infestation pit does go down. We have these Hellions continuing to push for MVP, and he's going to try to do as much harass as possible. Without too many roaches on the field, these Hellions are going to be strong. The Transformation Servos upgrade is not yet complete for these Hellions. They cannot transform into the Hellbats and apply any forward aggression, but they can still duck around, harass. You can try to scan, kill off some creep tumors. He actually just kills the entire wave there, and now he's going to scan, kill off these creep tumors. So good pickup for MVP. The roaches are going to shove him back now, but he's looking pretty fine. Overseer comes in, sees everything. Okay, so you've got a reactor factory, 2 tech lab factories. This is mech coming out of MVP. He's now going to mix in a couple of Widow Mines, though, and this is the new unit, of course, the new kid on the block, the Widow Mines, here to help supplement the mech play, and it's actually going to help a lot in terms of dealing with any kind of roach drops. One of the biggest attacks that kind of came up in the end of Wings of Liberty for dealing with this. He has some roach drop regression, lots of drops, and thing is, Widow Mines clustered well enough can actually kill off drops very quickly. They can help deal with roaches that try to get too close to your mech army. So he's going to move out with these Hellions. This base, I feel like the Transformation Service would actually really help him. Hellbats are actually good at killing buildings, but sees Swarm Host now coming out of Golden. He's getting that Enduring Locust upgrade, and these Locusts should be able to kill off these Hellions. His basically plan is to use the Locust to lay siege to this mech army. And the problem here for MVP is that keeping your tank spread enough to cover all of the possible places the Locust can attack from is very difficult, especially once we get into the later stages with this Hive tech coming in now. So Hive is on the way. We have the Spire as well. So Golden's going to be able to move into Broodlords very, very quickly. And now he's going to lay siege. These Locusts do a ton of damage. They have 65 hit points. They take 2 shots to kill from upgraded tanks. These Widow Mines have had to activate their explosive payloads on them. And he scans, sees, okay, well, I can't really do too much about this. These swarm hosts are just going to burrow and send units forward forever. Manages to pick off one of them and walks a little bit too far. But this command center is in danger as well. Golden, he's just running these locust forward. He's going to pick off this siege tank. It might barely get away. Good catch. This is going to be super, super difficult to hold. There are still Widow Mines here, of course. He has the Overseer here to help spot for this. This is just so difficult. And the thing is, from this point, if he moves too many of his tanks over here, then look, the Widow Mine's actually attacking. He's going to pick out the SV building this command center. And all these Widow Mines, they're spending all of their attacks on these locusts. So really great aggression from Golden. MVP, he's kind of stuck. He can't leave his base at all. These guys are light, so the tanks don't kill them super quickly. One of the swarm hosts does get picked off. Love this physics, these corpses getting tossed around. But this is really great locust aggression. This is so hard to deal with as a Terran player trying to get this up. He finishes the command center, he's going to pull it back. He needs to get his siege tanks together. And thankfully, where Golden is attacking, all of MVP's tanks can really chip into the fight. But he could also try to push in for some right side aggression. We do have Roachling Force there prepared. But there are so many locusts that with this, he's really bought himself a lot of time. We now have the Greater Spire almost halfway done. MVP scans, he sees this, he realizes, okay, I need to get Vikings out. I can't just sit here massing tanks all day. We have some Hellbats being prepared as well. That Transformation Servos upgrade not completed, so the Hellions and Hellbats cannot switch between the modes. Scans, he's actually going to pick off a couple of these Swarm Hosts, not bad. Needs to watch out, though. These Locusts doing a lot of damage. One of these tanks might fall. Nope, managing to barely stay alive, but the Swarm Hosts will have to back up. Of course, they have a 25-second timer cooldown on their spawn Locust abilities, so it's pretty quick, in all honesty. By the time the Locusts die, they can spawn another one, so tanks taking a couple of shots is going to prevent these guys from coming any closer. And now MVP has managed to stabilize himself versus the Locust. He's safe, but at the same hand, we have 5 Broodlords on the way. We have a bunch more Corruptors coming in. 2 Command Centers about to finish, and 4 MVP. So this game could reach its climax very soon. We have a lot of units on the field for our Zerg player with a nice supply lead over MVP as well. So some of the supply may be in Roaches, but MVP, he actually didn't lose terribly too much to the Locust. It was annoying for him. He couldn't push out or really do any harass with them on his back, but I'm telling you, not able to deny this base from going up. But if MVP can secure this 4th base, he'll be in a great position. The Locust and Roaches pushing forward, blowing these Zerg units to smithereens. And the Zergling's going to poke away at this planetary fortress. But here come the Broodlords. He's got more Corruptors now. He's got a good number of Broodlords. And, yeah, Golden. He's looking to get a little bit aggressive here. So MVP's pushing out with his tank Hellbat combination. He's got enough Vikings to put on a lot of pressure, but he needs to be careful. The Locust is actually spawning right on top of these tanks. But there's so much here, and so few Locusts, he can just kill them very quickly. He's not even going to bother to deal with those, not going to scan or anything, which could hurt him later on if he gets basically flanked by them. But we're going to have to see what happens. The Locust are ready to spawn more. He sees them immediately. MVP needs to scan. This is free damage being done by Golden. He really does need to scan, though, and kill these Swarm Hosts off. But he's saturating the 4th base now, taking his gas. He's going to scan. Those Swarm Hosts will die. But now, the army for Golden is here. There's only about 7 Broodlords, which, compared to previous matches that we've seen, not the worst thing ever. These tanks and Hellbats can shoot through a ton of units on the ground. You can punch through these Queens and Zerglings, but it's going to come down to whether or not these Vikings can fight. He uses Corruption on all of the Vikings, though, and the Transfuse is preventing the Broodlords from dying. There's so many Queens here, he just can't kill the Broodlords. The tanks and Hellbats are trying to push forward, but all of the anti-air for MVP is now gone. A great engagement by Golden. Only 1 Broodlord dies here. He's been knocked down to 7, but there's not enough anti-air to actually finish all of this off. He's going to move his tanks up and try to snipe the bases while the Broodlords are chewing through some of these tanks, but man, the upgrade through the tanks are actually helping them being a little bit more sustainable. He's going to try to move the Hellbats in towards the 3rd base. These tanks, of course, will be able to snipe the 3rd, possibly a couple of these Infestors, which would be huge. And at the same time, we have Viking production continuing for an MVP. He needs some Ravens, though, if he wants to be able to overpower these Corruptors. There's simply way too many of them. Seeker Missile is a must for dealing with this. We have tanks on the left side going to try to kill off this hatchery. Might have been better off left unsieged, but the Zerglings will be able to swarm these guys. And we have the Vikings on the field, but getting enough Vikings to stop this is going to be so hard. Actually getting caught out on the field loses a Viking. The Corruptor count. There's so many. There's 15 Corruptors here in this ball. Getting enough Vikings to deal with this, with the combination of the Infestors being able to throw a fungal or two here, is going to be so difficult. And it looks like Golden, with the huge supply lead, is getting ready to push in. MVP doesn't have enough to stop this push. He just doesn't have enough Vikings. There's no Ravens. He doesn't have any splash damage to help fight this. No Seeker Missile. He's adding in some Thors, but at this point, even with that high impact payload mode that he's activated on them, it's going to be so difficult to actually kill anything. He sets everything into the splash plate payload, and now he's sending them back. Of course, it's a 4-second transformation that makes these Thors completely idle. So the Zerglings are busting in. There are Hellions to fight here, but that transformation service was never completed. He can't make them into Hellbats, which are much better at fighting the Zerglings head-to-head. And now the Broodlords are pushing in, trying to throw a fungal, misses the Vikings, but MVP, is he going to be able to hold on here? This is going to be so difficult. He has 4 Thors, but there's so much here for Golden. He's getting to build even more Broodlords. We have Zerglings in the main base. Zerglings trying to push in through the natural. He's cleaned it all up in a hatchery being taken at the right side of the map. Will MVP be able to bust out of this, contain all of these Broodlords everywhere? His Thors have great upgrades. The Broodlings, I want to say the upgrades are only +1 attack, so he can hold off a little bit of the damage, but these Broodlords just have too much hit points. He manages to snipe one of them, but the Thors have quite a bit of range. He needs the SCVs to get up here and repair them, though when another Thor falls, there are only three left. He was doing his best to move up here. A couple of Vikings are going to come in from the side. The Corruptors are clumped, but it's just 3 Thors. That 4th one is now out. A Widowmine does get a shot off on the Corruptors, but there's simply too much here for Golden. MVP is at 120 supply to 180. Corruption coming out of the Corruptors, and that's going to be GG. MVP will lose game number 2.